one of my favorite stories is I had hired this young kid. He was, I think he was 20 years old, was working in a restaurant and waiting tables / managing a little bit. Hired him to teach him how to sell. Very well, like very good presentation, like good looking young man. And I was like, I can teach this guy anything. So I tried to teach him for like 2 weeks, and it just wasn't clicking. I went and I ran alongside of him, and I was like, he did this thing where he got nervous, he got loud. He's like, all right, so we've got 250 feet of gutter. And I'm like, dude, why are you yelling at the customer? Like, stop. And like that was his thing. He like to assert dominance, he'd get really loud. And I just blew out Sam's ears. But but that's what he would do. So by the end of this day, we had like 4 or 5 estimates that day. And so I followed him on the first one. I jumped in real quick and then saved it. And then the next one, I was like, all right, watch me on this one. And so we alternated back and forth. And the last estimate of the day, we still did siding. So I was like, hey, her name was Nancy. Hey, Nancy. So my name's Colin. I am the senior here. All right, Randy is in training. I'm going to present everything that is siding to you because he doesn't know that yet. But I'm going to have him present the gutters, and I'll just kind of jump in and save the day. She's like, oh, awesome, great, I love that. Thank you so much, blah, blah, blah. And through my presentation, I could tell she was like a former bigwig. I didn't know what this lady did, but I was like, Nancy, I finally was just like, Nancy, what did you do for a living? And her husband goes, oh, here we go. And turns out she was, I don't even remember what industry she was in, but she traveled the country speaking on stages, teaching people, right? And she was a real big wig. And I was like, you know what, Nancy? I've got a request of you. And she goes, okay. And I was like, I'm willing to give you your gutter for free today, but I need you to be as brutally honest as you can with the sales rep after his presentation. And she's like, deal. All right. So we go through, we do the siding, and then he does the gutter pitch, and she tore this kid apart. He was in brand new boots, and she's like, you're not a worker. I'm not going to buy services from somebody who's dressed in shoes like that. And you didn't tell me anything about the product. Just like boom, boom, boom. You went right into pricing and this and that. And he was like, yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Next day, it was like the flip of a switch. This dude he made 6 figures his first year selling for us, right? And he was actually my first ever 6-figure earner. But he was like, he was just like, holy crap, man. You told me all that stuff, but it took a customer saying it to me to really hear it. But anyways, total tangent off of your pot story. But one of the biggest mistakes people make when they hire, the first people that we always hire are who? Friends. Yep. F and F, all right? Friends and family. So everybody makes that mistake. And then because they're our first hire, what do our businesses look like? Well, we're just trying to get jobs and make money. We have 0 systems in place. We don't have a company handbook. We don't have any rules, procedures, policies in place. So if your buddy won't climb the ladder, there's no you can't do the job. You can't work, man. It's just your emotions, how you're feeling is what happens. So then what happens, right? When we don't have policies and procedures in place and we have our friends and family working for us, they tend to push the limits a little bit, right? Oh, you're my buddy. So what if I'm hungover because I was out till 4 o'clock in the morning? I showed up on time. Yeah, but you're not worth a damn. I don't want you here, right? You still reek like booze, Or nah, dude, you can't sit and Snapchat all day long. No, stop. So because we don't have those, then we have to fire them. And when we fire them, because we're new in business, what do? We tell them why we're firing them. All right, and so we go through this laundry list of shit, and then they give us this laundry list of shit back on how we suck at business, right? Been there? Everybody's been there, done that? Okay. Or they give us this laundry list of how, you're just making all this money off of me, right? We've all heard that one too. You don't do anything because you just sit in your office all day or whatever, right? So we hire friends and family, and it ruins relationships, all right? My very first employee was a friend who became a best friend. He worked for me for about a year, and that first year, it was me and him, and that was it. I would do all the estimates in the evening, sell the jobs, and then we would install them during the day. We'd be done by 2 o'clock, whatever. We'd go to the local bar, have a beer, get lunch every day. That was it. I paid this guy to live the best freaking life. He was making $5 an hour more than he'd ever made in his life. And we go back to my house, hang out on the porch for a little bit, chit chat. He'd beat feet, I go do estimates. All right? That's how it went every single day. And then I wanted to build a business. And so I started implementing policies, procedures, and all that fun stuff. And you would have thought I grew horns and I was the devil, because this guy did not want to follow any of that because I didn't have any of it in place from the get-go. So hiring friends and family can work, but you can't be the one that manages them. My director of operators, Jonathan, his brother-in-law displayed some interest in working for us. And I was like, I like it. You guys are actually in business together. They own an Airbnb in town, or a bed and breakfast in town. And I was like, you guys are in business together. You guys obviously work it out, kind of, but I don't want you guys dealing with each other here. So if we hire him, it has to be in sales, where he falls under Aaron's leadership and Aaron's only. You are not his direct report. You guys can obviously talk and hang out and whatever, but you can't be his direct report. So friends and family, 2. All right, those are the first people we hire. Second, how does everybody else hire? What was the next way that you started hiring people? All right, so then we'll do, I like, actually, because that's kind of like friends of friends / Facebook. Okay, we'll do that. And so friends of friends / Facebook. And that's all cool. And that's all fun and games, but still, we run into the same problem that we do here if we don't have documented systems, policies, procedures, offer letters, any of that crazy stuff, right? If we don't set clear expectations, we're setting ourselves up for people to get pissed off at us, all right? 3, then we get fancy and we use something like Indeed, all right? And your very first Indeed post feels really, really cool because you feel official, all right? Anybody else felt that when they did their first Indeed post? Like, oh, this is real. Like, I'm an employer on Indeed. Yeah, right? I'm no longer the guy looking on Indeed. People get to click apply now for me. And it feels cool. But we run into the same issues here. So you guys are sensing a reoccurring thing. We got to have policies, systems, procedures. You got to write actual former offer letters. You can't meet somebody at the coffee shop and say, all right, cool, Jared, I'm going to hire you. I'm going to pay $18 an hour. Like, let's go. You ready? Right? That feels really informal, right? How many of you have an office? Like a legit office that you rent, not at your house? Okay. All right, perfect. Cool. So once you have that, hiring gets way easier. Way easier. There's something that goes off, not just in the applicant's head, but your own head. When you have a place that's not the coffee house, that's not your personal residence, and you get to sit down and actually conduct formal interviews, it feels way more real. And like what I recognize is that before I had my office, my interviews, I had a lot less people that I offered jobs actually show up for work. Does that make sense? When I got the office and I would conduct interviews here, I don't know that I've had anybody. Nope, we had one sales rep just this year who we hired who never showed up for his first day. That was the first time that had ever happened. All right? There's just something psychological with having an office that radically changes the game and how serious it can be. Now, all right, Colin, cool. You've talked about policies, procedures. I don't want to teach you guys all about policies and procedures, but the gist of this, when you hire people, the most important thing you need to do is have an offer letter that clearly states what you expect out of these people, and if they don't meet that, this is why you're being released. That way it is no longer an emotional decision and you're not the asshole, all right? It is, hey, you're not doing this thing on your job description, therefore I cannot keep employing you. It's that simple, all right? Have write-up forms. Obviously, you don't do that the first time, right? But you write them up for it. And if they continue to not do it, you write them up. Or then you eventually fire them, all right? So let's talk, how do we get quality applicants? Because that's everybody's biggest struggle, right? Getting quality people for sales, getting them for install. Like, shout it out. Like, what is the hardest thing for you to hire? Sales? Okay. All of them? Okay. All right. Perfect. I know for us here and in Wilkes, actually, like getting enough sales reps has been difficult. Yeah, you got to find it takes the right personality, and yeah, it's just tricky. That's been the same thing within gutter launch. Um, that's been the hardest position for people to acquire. Long story short, what Daniel and I ended up doing, we stood right here with 2 whiteboards, set up a bunch of cameras, and we shot a pre-sales interview video so that salespeople beg to come and work for you. All right? So we shot this video and we explained their map to making $250,000 as a sales rep. And I had one guy in gutter launch that was eagerly awaiting that video being edited, and Sam got that done for me. And anyways, it finally got done. And this guy George inside of gutter launch, he's like, Colin, I've offered this position to 5 people and nobody will accept it. And I was like, all right, we got this video coming and I guarantee you this will help. And his first 2 interviews, he sent that to them before, and he said, Colin, it worked. They came in and they were begging me for this job. And I was like, no shit. And he's like, yeah, we haven't even used it yet. So thanks for testing it for me. So he's like, they were begging me. And then he's like, I got another interview tomorrow. I can't wait. Like, I sent it to them. And he texted me again, or he called me. I was in Dallas. He's like, dude, it worked a 3rd time. And I was like, yes, let's go. We figured it out, right? He literally got a guy that's moving 2 hours to come work for him, right? Like, just insane stuff. So we're going to start using it ASAP because it's hard. It's hard hiring sales reps. Here's the thing with sales reps or any sort of commission structure pay, they always feel like you're lying to them, right? Because we've all been lied to. We've all been told how much money we can make working for XYZ construction or whatever else, right? Everybody sells us this dream. Leaf Filter does it. You guys can make $500,000 a year working for us. They don't tell you that that doesn't include your materials or whatever, right? And so it doesn't work that way. But the way that we broke it down, incredible. So everybody inside of Gutter Kings, Gutter Launch, and Home Service Giants has access to that video. But how do we get these people to apply first? We got to write ridiculous good ad copy. So I'm going to give you guys some of my secret sauce, and I'm going to give you the framework of it. All right. So we're going to call this the hiring framework, and how I can get 80 applicants in a week for a technician position, and 40, 50 a week for a sales position, like what that can look like and how we can do that. So number 1, okay, creative title. So this gets a little bit tricky when you're using a platform like Indeed, because if you say something, let's say we're hiring a sales rep and you call them a commission connoisseur, right? Indeed is going to flag that unless you pay for it. All right? Indeed wants you to say something basic like sales representative. And they'll let you run it for free if it's sales representative. But commission connoisseur, they'll keep it active for like a day or 2, and then they'll block it unless you pay. You can pay $5 a day and it'll be live and everything will be fine. But they don't like the really creative titles. I've used ones for technicians. We have a lot of factory work around here. And so I've used one that says, get out of that factory. That's the title. And it just gets people's attention. And then we pitch them on working on Lake Michigan and like enjoying beautiful views and never being in the same place for 2 days in a row. Like, we just pitch them all the cool stuff. And they're like, oh, yeah, that's what I want. So have a creative title that catches attention. All right? It's no different than marketing. All right? When you are hiring, it is marketing for your internal clients rather than your external clients. That's it. All right? how much more important are these people than your actual clients? All right? You take care of them, and they will build your business for you. So, creative title. 2, inside your ad body, you want it to be benefits. Thank you. Goodness. Benefits only. All right? How many job ads have you seen where it starts with the qualifications are, blah, 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 right? It's all the things that you have to be qualified to do before you can apply for this job. Who knows that that is a really, really short list of people who are actually qualified, okay? When it comes to sales or installing gutter, they're pretty simple things. I mean, sales, yeah, you got to be able to do some hard stuff. Technicians, like, let's be honest, gutter, I mean, my 8-year-old son can hang gutter, all right, y'all? Like, it's not rocket science. It's not hard, okay? Yeah, you can mess it up, but really the only way you're messing it up is if you really don't care, all right? It is not rocket science. So don't talk about must be able to carry a 32-foot ladder, must be able to do this. Like, none of those things matter, all right? That's all teachable, trainable. And so you list the benefits only. 401k match program, sick company swag, snacks always in the break room, breakfast every Tuesday, right? All these little things that people are like, oh, that sounds like a really cool company, all right? It doesn't have to be anything ridiculous. Snacks in the break room, breakfast every Tuesday, like, holy cow. You know, sometimes I'll even say, like, we read personal development books as a company together. And that's where they're like, whoa, we invest in you first rather than you into our business, right? So benefits only. That's a huge one. I'll put under this your requirements. Well, I'll call them minimal requirements. So one of my taglines when it comes to minimum requirements, must be able to not show up drunk or high and have a driver's license. That's it. That's literally all I say. And you know how many people comment on that? Like, I thought that was hilarious, and it actually made me want to apply for this company. Like, that's pretty darn cool, right? So, minimum, very, very minimal requirements, all right? 3, max wage only. When you put how much money they can make, don't put $15 an hour to $40 an hour. Put $40 an hour. It will increase how many people apply immediately. When you have a sales position, you know, okay, well, right now, I'm Brandon, I'm generating how many leads a week? 50? 50 leads a week. If I want my sales reps only operating on 3 leads a day, right? That's 50 divided by 5 is 8 leads a day, so I need 3 reps, all right? So, okay, I'm hiring 3 reps. I know that I need to hire 3. Well, if they're running 3 leads a day, plus hopefully they bring me a couple more every day because they're knocking doors, doing yard signs, whatever else, right? If they're selling 2 out of every 3, they're making on average, you know, whatever that is, $600 a day. Yep. So $600 a day times 5 days a week, they're making $3,000 a week times. Let's say they only do that for 50 weeks, 45 weeks, whatever. So 50 for easy math, 150K. So I'm going to put 150K instead of, well, 50 to 150K. Don't put a range. Put the max only. All right. That will increase how many people actually apply for this job. All right. But make it realistic, all right? Don't dangle it too crazy. Like my technician role, our lead guys usually make 40 to $50 an hour, and so we'll just put $50 an hour on lead tech pay, all right? That's how that works. So we do those 3 things. Now, if you write your ads like this is great. This is one ad. Now, this is the kicker. This is actually like, I had to get on Isaac about this. I had to get on Aaron about this because they both had an ad that looked like this running, but only one of them. You take all this times 3. You write 3 ads for 1 position. Does that make sense? So if you are hiring salespeople, You better have 3 different ads that meet all this criteria going.
For the same position you said?
For the same position. Yep. If you're hiring a technician, you have 3 ads going for a technician. You write them all a little bit different. All right. Your ad body, you're going to write a little bit of paragraph or whatever in there, but you write it to target different people. I have ads that I target white collar people versus ads that I target, CNC machinist, right? Or ads that target young people. I use different lingo, different language, things that appeal to that generation. If I'm tired of dealing with wet behind the ears kids in my technician department, I'm going to write an ad that attracts an older, more established man, right? I could say something, here's a good one. Who knows, like most of us in here are roughly the same age. Sorry, Richard, except for Richard. But most of us in here are roughly the same age. My parents are in their 50s, late 50s at this point now. And it is like a badge of honor for them to work 20, 30, 40 years at one spot. Their parents even more so, right? How many of you had grandparents that retired out of, some factory after 40 years, right? And they have a cool pension and they have all this stuff. And they live a pretty good life, but they wear it like a badge of honor. Our parents are very similar. So if I want to attract somebody like that, like, hey, did you get screwed over by your last job? They fired you after 20 years of service. Like, we're here for your next 20. Something like that. That they're like, oh yeah, this is where I want to work. Okay, great. You can target people like that. Just think about the person that you're trying to attract. And something I've done in the past when I was looking for an integrator, one of my bankers was like the perfect dude for it. And I was like, hey, I don't want you to leave because I really like working with you, banking. But if I was trying to hire you, what would be attractive to you? If you were looking for a job, what could I say in a job ad that would get your attention? And I just kept asking him questions, just kept probing, like, tell me more about that. Oh, what do you mean by that? What about a pay scale? How would you like to be paid? Is a company vehicle important to you? Like, just asked, like, I fully interviewed him for like 45 minutes and learned what he would be after. And then I wrote my ad after that. And that's how I found Jonathan. All right? So it's pretty darn cool. You have to take this as serious as you take marketing to your customers. Probably more serious, because without these people, none of this crap happens. Like, you guys can all make money. We all know that. We can all make money doing gutters. But can we all build the business that we want without people? No. Anybody have a training program before these people touch a customer's property? And I've done a ton of research on this. When like Forbes released this article that when big companies like a Fortune 500 hire someone, they expect it to cost 1.5 times that person's salary until they start making money off that employee. All right, so 1.5 times that person's salary. Sorry, that motorcycle was just going like this, and I thought he was going to hit right out front here. I thought I was going to watch a body flying through the air. Anyways, so 1.5 times their salary plus their salary. So they're looking, if a employee is a $50,000 person, they're looking at spending $200K on that customer or on that employee until they start producing for them. Obviously, we're in a little bit different industry, and it's not going to be like that. But let's use 30 days, 1 month. All right. So here's what I experienced until I built a learning management system that trains our technicians, kind of like what Donnie said, but without Donnie having to be the one doing it, all right? Because that's your time. And your time, we all talked about this already, our dollar per hour value. We all know that it's worth a lot more than sitting there teaching somebody what a hanger is, right? Or what a left and right end cap is. So what it looked like is this. We've got our lead guy and we've got an apprentice. All right, so let's say, just for even numbers, we're paying them $20 per hour. All right, times 40 hours in a week equals, we're paying $800 a week. Okay? So that's our training cost. And we've got that for 1 month, so times 4, that is $3,200. All right? In 1 month that we're paying this person to learn our thing. That's pretty dang good. $3,200 a month for them to be able to go out and do simple jobs. I'm willing to pay $3,200 for them to learn that. All right? But there's cost accrued with that. Most of us in here are the ones doing the training, right? Okay. So you said if you're training them, what does that look like if you are the one training them? How many hours a day of your time? All right, 9 hours for 30 days, so 160 hours. Okay, so do you know what your dollar per hour value is? It's a lot higher than 100. Okay, so we're going to use 100. All right, we'll just use that for even numbers. So $100 an hour times, well, yeah, we're just going to go this. 160 hours equal, dang it, you know what? I'm just going to follow the same thing that I did above. Times 40 hours equals 4K per week times 4 weeks equals 16K. All right? I'm not okay with paying that much to train a guy. 16K, that kind of sucks, right? That stings a little bit. Now, let's talk about this. For us, our trucks produce with a crew that's working together, like it's been working together for a little bit, $25,000 to $30,000 a week. All right, so let's just use 25 for even numbers. All right, so 25K per week minus when we put a new guy on that before we had our learning management system, when we were doing in the field training, right, this way. Now, it wasn't me training them at this point, it's a lead guy, but still, they make 40, 50 bucks an hour, all right, that's money. 25K a week, what we were seeing was $5,000 to $8,000 less in production every single week with a new hire, all right, because it was just, we're able to get less jobs done, right? It was just slowing them down. Lead guy had to do more. Lead guy had to get down and help them. Lead guy, whatever it was, all right? So let's just go on the low side. That's 5K times 4 weeks, all right? Equals 20K. 20K in rev loss, all right? So now we're there. So these numbers, that's 36, roughly 40K. All right. Now Forbes' numbers are starting to look a little bit more realistic. All right. If you're hiring an apprentice, they're probably $20 an hour. 40 or 20 times 2,000 hours in a year is what? 40 grand? Yeah, it's almost dead on. A little more than 40K. All right. So we're right there now. Now let's talk about damages and mistakes that they make that cost us money, or any of that stuff, right? If they miss cut gutter, if they load up the wrong product and we got to come back home and go back to the job site, it cost us money. Now, does it cost 20K or 16K? No, but maybe like 2 to 5 grand their first month. Is that fair? Is that real? We'll just call it 3K right in the middle, and material damages. Oops. Material damage. All right, so now we're at 43K. All right, that person cost us. Now, that's one. That's one. Now homeboy quits after 60 days. And we start all over again. All right, so we just lost 43 grand, and now we get to start all over again because we don't have a faster way to train our employees. Does that make sense? So who in here knows what an LMS is? Okay. It's a learning management system. What a learning management system does, this is I don't know, we'll call it like a buzzword or whatever, right? But what a learning management system does is it trains your employees for you, all video. Now, does this mean that you put them through all this video and bam, they're a lead guy? No, all right? They're still gonna be slow. They're gonna be slow. But what we've seen is this stays the same. This realistically disappears because now they're working with a lead guy instead of me. They're still taking lead guys' time, but the biggest saver here is that completely wiped away. Completely. My lead guy had to work a few more hours, but this completely disappeared. So rather than being done by 4, they're home by like 5, 5:30, but they still got all the jobs done in 1 week. And then week 2, 30, 45 minutes later than normal. Learning management system. That completely disappeared. 20K gone on every single new technician that we hired. That's a game changer. So here's how I built these videos. I paid people who have 0 experience in the gutter industry, like a girl that works at the gas station I get my coffee at, like, hey, you want to make $100 on it one day? She's like, yeah. What do I got to do? And I was like, you just show up and you watch me make videos, not like what you're thinking, all right? And you make videos and we make videos and you ask any questions that aren't clear to you. I'm going to teach people how to hang gutter, and I need you're going to be one of 5 people that's just writing down anything that didn't make sense. So they were like, hey, you set the ladder up this way. Like, why did you do that? Hey, your ladder, like I saw you turn it around before you leaned it against the house. Why'd you do that? It's like, oh, you know what? There is such a thing. I have to teach people that you can put a ladder on the house backwards, right? Things that are second nature to us that are not second nature to them. I had to teach them how to wind up a freaking extension cord. All right? Like, hey, how did you do that? Like, what? I saw you put it on your arm. Why'd you do that? Like, oh, you know what? These are things that we don't think about because our brains work that way. But some of my best technicians didn't have grandma whoop their ass because they didn't know how to put the garden hose away in the middle of summer, right? So they never learned how to wind up a garden hose or an electrical cord, right? They didn't know that you can't back your gutter truck up to someone's garage and expect to run gutter through it, right? That's a real story. I pulled up on a job site one time in box truck. I was right behind them, and they backed up to the person's garage, and I got out. I'm like, what are you doing? They're like, getting ready to run gutter. What do you mean? How are you going to run gutter? Like we always do. We'll plug in the front porch and rock and roll. Yeah, you got to run that gutter right through their garage door? They're like, oh, shit, yeah. Right? Just stupid stuff like that. So inside of the learning management system, we go boom, 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 and teach them the most minute bull crap ever. And while, no, you're right, they don't get the experience of like hanging the gutter and setting it against the fascia and pinning it until they get in the field, but they see it all happen and it's all explained. Like I did with Jared today. Hey, once you get this on the fascia, you could take one hand off and just keep pressure on that against the fascia. And Jared did it his first try. He's like, oh, okay, that was pretty easy, right? It's explained just like that. So now they get on the job site, but also because all of our trucks are set up identical, we teach them where everything is in the truck and what every tool does and how it works, when we use it, why we use it, all of that stuff. And so it's just like boom, 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 boom. And we have technicians that show up for their first job, and the lead guys are like, yeah, I don't have to tell them anything. Like, hey, I need this piece. Okay, cool, boom, and they run it out to me. They know where it is in the truck, and off they go. So it slows the lead guy down so much less. It still takes longer because the apprentice isn't a well-oiled apprentice, right? So instead of doing a downspout in 5 minutes, it takes him 15, right? Or whatever, because he doesn't know how to use the double cut snips, because he's got to learn how to place his hands and all that fun stuff. But he at least knows this is how it's supposed to work. I just need reps, just like we all do. We all need reps doing everything we've talked about today in order for it to equal the yield that we want it to.
So generally speaking, because of working with all the gutter launch members and Isaac and others, this is kind of what we've seen happen. So if we put somebody through the LMS, so for about 3 days, they are watching all the videos and they're taking the tests. So inside of our LMSs, people have actual tests that they need to score high enough on in order to graduate to being able to taking up the lead technician's time. So it's going to take about 3 days paid where for 3 days they're going through the LMS, and they're gonna get about 70% there conceptually from what we've seen, where like I conceptually understand everything I need to know in order to hang gutter. Like I'm there, I just actually haven't done it yet, right? And then so after those 3 days of their online training inside of the LMS and proving to us that they have passed all the tests, they show us their scores, then after about 3 more days of hanging out with the lead tech, they're ready to go. And one of the biggest testaments to this has been, so Michael was hanging the gutter today, but I think we mentioned that Michael, day 4, so last Gutter Secrets Live, Michael was the 4th day into the job, and he was showing everybody how to hang gutter. And it was because for 3 days, he went through the LMS, proved that he conceptually knew how to do it. Then he hung out with Nick for a few days, and then it was Gutter Secrets Live. And he was nervous, but he performed just fine, and it looked like that Michael knew what he was doing, even though it was only his 4th day ever hanging gutter. So anyway, the whole bottom line here is we have this magic way of within 6 days we've got a tech that pretty much knows how to install, and then that's why Colin's saying for the most part, instead of 4 weeks of lower productivity, you're down to maybe like a week at most. And then so without the LMS though, without video training, literally you have to take every single tech from 0 to 100. And that's why it's going to take a whole month without that.
Now, so here's something else. All right, so let's say we do cut this, right? This is no longer Brandon, but this is a lead tech making $40 an hour. So 40 times that, it's 1,600. Is that right? 40 times 40? 1,600? That seems low, but 1,600 times...
Oh, yeah, it's because you did 4K a week.
Oh, yeah, times 4. Yeah. So essentially, 1,600 times 4 is what? 3264? Okay. 6,400. All right. Well, that sounds a lot better, Colin. I'm okay with that. Well, okay. So you've got a lead guy. Okay? That's what happens when you depend on lead techs to be your trainers. Because I've got Jared, who I trained. Jared did great. Jared learned everything the way I wanted him to. Awesome, cool. I'm off the truck. We hire Brandon. Brandon learns from Jared. Well, Jared didn't fully remember everything to train you on, and so you filled in some of the gaps yourself. All right, you graduate. You're a lead tech. You've got a truck over here now, and we hire Donnie, and then you're training Donnie. And, so you filled in some of your gaps, and then you don't fully train him the best way because you're a gutter technician. You're not a trainer, right? So Donnie has to fill in some of the gaps himself, and then Donnie grows, and before you know it, this happened in my business. I showed up on a job site and watched, and I was like, what in the hell are you guys doing? And why are you doing that way? I didn't teach you that way. They're like, what are you talking about? This is how so-and-so taught me. Shit. Okay, so I go to so-and-so, like, who taught you to do that? Oh, I didn't get taught, so I just guessed, and that's how I started doing it. Shit. Okay. That's when I recognized that having a learning management system that teaches everybody the same way every single time is what's most valuable. So that the game of telephone will happen if you don't, if it's not you training training the people every single time. And so if it's you training the people every time, then we're back up to $100 an hour, and that doesn't make any sense, right? So I had it brought up to me. We just did a call on Gutter Launch. This guy's buying Gutter Launch, and he runs 2 supply houses: roofing, siding, gutters, windows, doors, all that. He's the general manager over 2 stores in Mobile, Alabama, and manages like $8 million in total sales between the two locations. And he brought it up to me. One of our options is roughly $3,000 a month for this program that he's picking, and he was like, yeah, that's the one I want to go with. Like, he goes, $3,000 a month is amazing. Like, that's a $17 an hour employee. And I was like, wait, what? So, yeah, that's $3,000 a month is a $17 an hour employee. And I was like, holy crap. Nobody's ever said it that way before. That's actually really cool. And why is that so little to you? He goes, Colin, if I could have access to someone like you for $17 an hour with a full learning management system where I don't have to train my employees, but you do it, like, why would I not pay that? Like, he goes, Colin, anybody in their right mind would pay you $17 an hour to show up and help them in their business, right? I was like, yeah. He goes, and I get access to that. I was like, yeah, you do. He goes, okay, then it makes sense. And I was like, holy shit. Like, you just taught me something, dude. Like, that was really cool. So anyways, that's how little an LMS could cost you, right? So $3,000 a month times 12 months is 36K. You're winning if you only hire one employee. Anyways, it's besides the point. I'm not trying to sell you guys that. So I just wanted to give you that aha moment that I had from that sales call.